Come on. If you want to work inside AUM or Ape Matrix and do sequencing, MIDI sequencing, then not getting the Rosetta suite is kind of weird, okay? Hello and welcome to haQ. My name is Jakob. I'm your host and you're watching well, I think this is a haQ episode, but it could be a vlog. So I'm doing this video because I want to be able to answer with a video link whenever I get the question, Jakob, what do you use to record your MIDI sequences inside AUM? Or what do you use to sequence stuff in AUM? And the answer is, I don't. Now, AUM is a modular audio mixer. And it has a MIDI system like attached to it. It doesn't have any sequencing options, and so you're gonna have to use third-party plugins. I do not work like that because I think it's the most contrived way ever of working, and I absolutely hate setting up third-party MIDI plugins in order for me to get something going. It's a critique towards the workflow of working like that, okay? That process is something I loathe. I don't like doing that. But I'll try to be somewhat helpful in this episode by showing those of you who want to work like that some options so you know what you have to choose from. Okay, so what is it about this workflow that infuriates me? Well, it is the fact that you end up with 1,000 small little boxes with the MIDI sequencing all spread out. Now, some of you would say, Jakob, I've seen you do stuff in AUM where you're using stuff like Pure Acid, which has its own sequencer. And yeah, exactly. Pure Acid is a groove box. So it has a bass synth, it has a drum machine in there, it has its own effect section, and it has its own pattern sequencers, but they're all in that same app. I don't have to open up a multitude of different MIDI sequencing apps to do my sequencing. I can connect a controller to Pure Acid directly. I can map out my controllers. I can MIDI CC all the knobs to my controllers, and I can just record and do stuff in that app. One controller or two, and then some hardware, and that's it. But if I choose to do it with a multitude of different synthesizers, like let's say Agonizer synth, let's throw Volt synth in there, and then throw in a piano roll MIDI app, and then throw in this step MIDI app, and just keep going, suddenly the session just becomes unbearable to use for me. But what if you're not like that? What if you don't have problems working with multiple windows open at the same time? What are your options? Well, if you want to do step sequencing, step bud, cycle, and MIDI steps. These will allow you to do step sequencing. You load them up as MIDI audio unit plugins inside AUM, and then you can just route your keyboard into this app through the routing system, and you can route the output from these apps to whatever synth or whatever sound device you want to be using. And now you can step sequence stuff right inside this environment. You won't have to leave AUM to do that. I hate working like this, but these work for that. I've tried them out. Now, I want to stress here that when you look at step bud and cycle and MIDI steps, these are all very different step sequences from one another. I would say that MIDI steps is a very straightforward, conventional step sequencer. And then I would say that the next kind of conventional thing would be step bud, and it allows you to do way more in the forms of modulation and stuff because of how it's set up. You can see that in that row down here, what you can actually do with this thing. Now, with something like Cycle, this one is very, very different. Do not get this one if you're looking for something conventional in the forms of step sequencing. If you want something that is not conventional, then do get Cycle. Now there is one more plugin actually, and you can find it inside Brambos's, Rosetta, okay? And Rosetta has more stuff than just the step sequencer. It's got like a Euclidean sequencer, it's got MIDI LFOs, it's got loads of stuff. If you want to work inside AUM or Ape Matrix and do sequencing, MIDI sequencing, then not getting the Rosetta suite is kind of weird, okay? So just go look for the Rosetta suite, and then if you want to do step sequencing and you want something else other than what the Rosetta suite offers you, go check for StepBud, Cycle, or MIDI Steps, because they do this really well. Oh, wait, I almost forgot. If you want to do drum sequencing, then there is this app called Octacron. Or is it Octatron? Wait, let me check this out. Octacron. Okay, so it's called Octacron, and this can also be loaded up as an audio unit MIDI plugin, which is different from just AU. It gets very confusing really fast, especially if you're new to this stuff. But Octacron, drum sequencing, it covers that. But what if you want to do some piano roll editing? Well, there is one that I know about. It's AUM Piano Roll, and that's all it is. It's a plugin window with a piano roll interface. It takes MIDI keyboard inputs so you can record stuff on the fly. It will quantize stuff for you if you want that, and yeah, that's it. This way you can now record your performances and everything, and you can get it into MIDI. Now, if you don't want to work with these small plugin windows, are there any MIDI sequencing apps just for sequencing that you could use instead, like full suites? And yes, there is another one, and that is ModStep. But when you're working with ModStep, you do not need AUM at all. It's kind of like its own DAW, but it's not really, because you don't have any audio editing abilities in this. Now, what ModStep does well is the clip launching. So it's kind of an Ableton-esque like thing, but for MIDI only, not for audio. You make MIDI sequences that you then have as little boxes, little clips, little loops that you can start and stop at the tap of a finger, or you could just connect the controller to it and you can start and stop sequences or clips by just tapping a pad or button or whatever you might have mapped it to. ModStep is its own system. Okay, so just wait a minute. Before you run over to the App Store to buy ModStep, you need to know about this. ModStep hasn't been updated for 3 years, and I don't know if it's going to be updated. And it's a shame, because it's one of the best candidates for anyone wanting to do live MIDI looping. So one bug that I found is that you can load audio unit instruments, inter-app audio instruments, audio unit effects, and inter-app audio effects. If I go into the audio unit effects, I can't seem to find any FabFilter plugins. So there's something that these FabFilter plugins are doing that is new, and it makes it so that ModStep can't see them. That is a huge problem for me, because I use Pro Q3 all the time, and I need that effect when I do mixing and equalizing and stuff. So just consider that before you run off to buy ModStep. Yeah. You know, there are other ways to sequence stuff, but we are starting to gravitate away from working from within AUM. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And you know what? I'm sure that many of you watching this have better information than me on this topic, because many of you might already be doing this on a regular basis. And so please share your experience with everyone reading the comment section down there. Many times I just wish that there was a new version of AUM that had MIDI sequencing, in it as a core element, but it doesn't, because it was an audio mixer from the beginning, and it is still that to me, and it just has MIDI routing systems. I'm not critiquing AUM, I'm not critiquing these apps, I'm critiquing the workflow. If you want to support the channel, hitting that like is extremely helpful, commenting down below. As usual, I wish you a very productive week. Now go finger all of your stuff and have a lot of fun doing it. The duck, huh?